Good morning everybody and welcome to my channel. I'm Jennifer, this is A Country Life, and today I'm just going to let you guys spend the day with us. We are processing a deer, actually 2 deer. I've had a number of people, I shouldn't say a number, but there's been a couple people that have wondered a little bit more about how we go about processing our deer, what all is involved in that. And I don't have a perfect, this isn't going to be a perfect from start to finish kind of video. This is just what's happening today. And I'm going to try to share as much as I can with you. I'm just going to get everything out right now. We already have bowls of meat right here ready to grind. So this is all the meat that we are going to be grinding into hamburger. That is what we are the most short of right now, and so we wanted to have a lot of that. So this is 3 great big bowls here. I don't even know how many pounds yet, but this is all going to be ground into hamburger. So shortly, as soon as I'm done talking to you, I'm going to go downstairs, bring up our lem grinder, and then I'm going to get out all of the other things that I need for grinding and packaging the meat. And I'll just kind of share as I go about. I'm also, after I get this set up, and there should be a basket somewhere, and that's Joe's. You could put it all in a basket. And so then after I get all of my stuff set up in here, and I probably get started on some of the grinding, I am going to take a break and go outside to the shed and just kind of share with you guys what's going on out there. I'll ask Warren all kinds of questions. He's going to love that. And I will kind of just kind of give you information as to how we do it. It's not the only way to do it. There's so many different ways, and I know if you have already done deer, you probably have your own way. But if you haven't, you might be searching out a method, and this is just our method. So let's get on with it. Oh my God, it's heavy. Emily and Sparky stopped out, so you're gonna hear kids, and you're gonna see them every once in a while too. So yeah, we'll use that one. So Emily is just getting ready to pull out the meat grinder, and this one is specifically the Lem Big Bite. Is that in a different language on this side? Why do I not know what that word is? Hachor.
Yeah.
Is that a different language? Oh, okay. So that's what? French?
Spanish?
Let's get it to the Spanish?
I think it's Spanish.
Okay, let's get it to the actual English side. There we go. So it is specifically Lem Big Bite Grinder, which means you can put some nicer, some little bit bigger chunks of meat into the opening. And this is the number 8 with a 0.35 horsepower motor. Okay, it works great. We've had it for a number of years. It was actually a gift to us. We used to have something that, how would you explain the old meat grinder that we had?
A death trap. I'm surprised that after 7 kids, everyone still has their fingers.
Yeah, it was quite a situation. It was quite a grinder, that's for sure.
Like, I don't think I would ever let Colt near that grinder. Like, I couldn't even imagine. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was something. So anyway, we got this really nice one as a gift a number of years ago.
Just to show everybody.
Bring it out just to show everyone.
Just to show everybody.
Oh boy. So we're going to get this put together.
The closet, it's shut.
It's
the basement's shut.
Totally fine, honey. There's really nothing out there that's going to be horrible. I was just going to get something. What was I going to get?
Cut my finger.
You cut your finger?
Badly?
Is it bad?
Kind of.
Stitches? He's not listening to me.
No. So the blade's in. I tighten this down.
Yeah, I feel like I was... Oh, I know. I was going to get my
Apron?
extension cord.
Probably not.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my extension cord is gone.
Mom, Sam said probably not.
Probably not. Okay, I gotta run down to the basement. I'll shut the door. Sam, you dripped blood on the floor out here.
We're missing 2 pieces.
Really? I know last night a lot of them were under the side table.
I'll check my rib. I'm mean, it's pretty self-explanatory in the directions, how it all goes. There's a couple different blades. There's a couple different tubes, depending on what size container you're stuffing, or I suppose if you were making sausage or something, you might use a different tube. But for hamburger, we like as much to come out as possible and to fill our bags as fast as possible. My voice is super hoarse or scratchy, isn't it?
Yeah, it sounds like it's a lot of effort to talk.
Yeah, that's what I'm noticing too. In here I have all of my bags. Now, years ago, we did not use bags like this. We just used freezer quart-size bags. We stuffed them full and then pushed out all the air and flattened them, and that was how we stored meat forever and ever. Once we got this grinder, though, with this attachment, it just works better, and it's a lot faster to use these bags that are meant for it. These bags just slip on like this. They work really well. They have the 1 pound marking, but they also, if you stuff them full, are 2 pounds or a little over 2 pounds. I got the ground beef ones simply because when I ordered these so many years ago, this box of 1,000 was a lot less expensive per bag to get the ground beef than it was to get the wild game. And that is the only reason why I have ones that say ground beef, even though I'm putting venison in it. These are the 1 pound bags. Again, you can overstuff them a little bit if you want to, and you can get about 1.5 in these. Anyway, all of these different things, I will put links in the description box in case you want to go read about it a little bit more and just get more information. Also, I have a Sharpie here, and I also have my packaging system. So this is very easy. You just put that like that, and then you put this in here, and it goes over like that, and the little package will slip down in there, and it will cut and stick it and all the things that need to be done to package it up nice and tight. And I'll show you that when we get to that point. Well, let's get it turned on. You know where the button is, Maria? Okay.
Get a bag! Get a bag!
I'm getting a bag. I'm getting a bag. Now normally we don't stop it in between bags. I'm just doing it right now just to show you all quickly how this happens. As one bag is full, you twist it down as tight to keep out as much, you want to get all the air out as possible, and then just push it. Okay, that didn't work. I don't know what I just did wrong. Let's do it again. What's going on, Emily?
Oh, it slept the...
Did it slip?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
No, you have to start it with it over the piece.
Whoop. Oh, I think I should put the tape around.
We need a heater.
There we go. Okay, so
We need a heater.
take that out. Now,
We need a
tight,
heater.
push it down. It really spun back. I don't know why. But anyway, there we go. It just... It sticks the tape together and cuts it all in one motion. I'm not really sure why it bounced back though today.
It's freezing cold. It's like when you make meatloaf.
Yeah.
Your hands burn.
Yes, I know exactly what you're talking about. we'll have to just put another one. Yep, I'm coming.
When they show up, oh my gosh.
It's the meat. It's a meat turd. It's a meat turd. All right, so we're gonna take just a short break from in the house here. This little hunk of meat here needs to thaw. And you might be asking yourself, well, why did they freeze the meat in the first place? Well, this was the first deer that we got this year, and you know, like for 2021. And we wanted to have it CWD tested. And so in our state, you have to drop off the head, and it takes a little while. So you really, we weren't able to keep the meat in its, like just fresh, never frozen state, because we wanted to be able to grind it after we had the test results back. So all of the steaks that we cut, Warren cut, he wrapped those, and we got those in the freezer, and we just marked them that we knew they were this year's deer. So in case the CWD test came back positive, then we could just discard that meat. But it came back negative, and so now the test did come back negative, and so now what we did is we've been thawing the all the trimmings to cut up into hamburger, and that's why that little chunk is still frozen. So here's the setup out here. So this is Warren's shop here, and we have just these little tables. You know, these are those just like little short, I don't even know what you call these, whatever, little tables. And then we have some of these cutting boards, and I believe we've purchased our cutting boards from Fleet Farm, if I'm not mistaken. Did we get both of them from Fleet?
Yes, we did.
Yeah. And I mean, you can get these at just all over the place. I've seen them even at Amazon, other meat packing online companies, things like that. Anyway, so we have those, and we also were given, Warren was given a gift years, like 20 years ago probably. It's this butchering kit here, and most everything is pulled out of it right now because they're using it. But it has a whole bunch of different knives, different shapes of knives, and cutters and things like that. So anyway, he just uses this every year. We also use some of our kitchen knives, and
we have some knives from Uncle Dan that I forgot to bring out.
oh yeah, okay, I forgot that. You're right, we do have those knives too.
We gotta break those out for gun season.
We do, because we're sometimes getting a little low on knives, you know, as we have more and more people helping to cut meat.
Should have just let Sparky take my knife, and I could have sat and had a beer.
That's one option.
Yeah.
Give me the rundown. Let's just take it back.
Well, you shoot a deer.
Yeah, there you go, Peter.
That's when you butcher it.
So the deer that you're cutting up right now, that has been hanging for how many days?
2 days.
For just 2 days. So you really do want to give deer a little time to hang. We found that the muscles relax, and you know, I think you just get better meat if it hangs for a few days. And I don't know what the longest is, I guess depending on how cold it is, right?
If it's really cold, it can hang for a week, but it's gotta be cold.
Yeah, nice and cold. These are the back straps.
Mm-hmm.
And
taking the sinew off, or I guess the silver skin, whatever you want to call it.
right, just kind of an outer membrane. So you can see Warren just slides the fillet knife underneath to basically fillet that off.
No, I was trying to get more of the meat off of the tray, but it keeps on.
And like I said earlier in this video, there's so many different ways to butcher a deer. It really is just, you have to butcher it according to what your family likes and what your family is going to eat. And obviously you want it to be safe and clean and all of those things. And so we've just found that it's much better to open up a package of meat knowing that it's ready to go. That I know I've had meat in the past where sometimes I've opened up something and then you have to do a lot of trimming. I just like it when I'm cooking to know that I can open it up and I'm basically ready to go, rather than having to spend a bunch of time trimming and things like that. Because if you ever want to start your meat from frozen, like in a crock pot or an Instant Pot, if it's not trimmed, you can't do that.
And now we're gonna do mini roasts. So that's hamburger.
So this is the back strap. I think I said that already. And then, yeah, you can talk a little louder, Warren, so they can hear.
all I'm doing is cutting mini roasts, which if you decide later you don't want mini roasts, you can cut them into steak. But you take that, wrap it in bacon, put it on the grill, and it's the best eating you could ever have.
I used to not season the mini roasts and just do the bacon, but I have found recently that I've been seasoning it with either a steak seasoning or a hamburger seasoning called something like Amazing Burger. Amazing Burger seasoning. There's just a lot of different things. You can do just simple salt, pepper, and then put on some onion powder and garlic powder before wrapping in bacon, but venison can take a lot of seasoning because it is a very lean meat. I usually figure about a teaspoon of salt per pound venison can take. So this is the back strap before it's trimmed up at all. And he's just going to do the same thing as he did to the first one. We'll go over to this side. What do we have happening over here?
Jokes.
Jokes?
Yeah. Jokes. No, just cutting hamburger. So this is just like, what is this, neck or back?
Neck.
This is just meat off the neck. That's just kind of messy.
Yep.
So we're just cleaning it up into little chunks and then getting all this like a tendon out and stuff like that.
Yep, so they're just trimming up, and then this, I would take it as your scrap pile here.
Yeah.
Yeah, the dried outer
Yep.
outer layer is.
Yep, anywhere,
it
so
dries.
exactly, that's a great thing to point out. So if the meat gets dry on the outside, we tend to we always cut that off. I don't know if it's necessary, but we do just to get the best quality meat because...
It clogs up the grinder too.
Yeah, that's true. It will clog up the grinder. But I just keep coming back to, as you're cutting it, think, do I want to eat this?
That's what I told the guys before.
Is this something that I want to eat? Is this something I want to turn into beef or venison stroganoff, chili, whatever it might be? Whatever it is, do I want to eat this? And that's really kind of just our mantra.
It's organic. As organic as it gets.
And what's Peter working on? Trimming too?
Hamburger.
He works on hamburger.
I'm
And
just
then,
doing all the hamburger pieces off the back strap.
okay, so everything that Dad trims off, then you trim it up?
Yep.
Okay. It's important to have a really good knife sharpener, or a couple of them, because, well, that seems self-explanatory, but it's a lot easier to cut meat with a really sharp knife.
Yep.
I sharpened it when you told me to take the sharpener out.
Yep.
I sharpened it like 6 times.
6 times, I know.
I sharpened my knife once and it's gonna need another.
Gonna need another one.
I sharpened my knife about like maybe 7 times.
And then we just have bowls over here, and they just keep filling them up. We have a few that are hamburger, or are going to be hamburger. It's the trimmings, and then we have some backstrap, mini roasts there.
Boone and Crockett backstrap.
That's perfect. I wonder if you could just like cut that in half and just like grill a whole backstrap like that.
Well, sure, it'd come out like prime rib.
Ah, that would be kind of fun to do sometime.
Fun for you or fun for me? Sounds like you're making plans for me.
Making plans for you.
Yes.
Is there anything else that I've forgotten to mention about cutting up meat, or?
More help, the better.
That's true.
Overtime on Sundays.
Overtime on Sundays.
Don't be intimidated. Just get in and start cutting. You'll learn your own way.
And that is such good advice. Yeah, I
It worked
remember
out fine if they did it my way all the time.
all the time. I remember when we were first married and I was just learning to cut up meat, and it was really intimidating. I remember crying because I was like, I don't even know what to do. And you remember that too? Because Warren just seemed to be such a pro at it, and he was so fast, and it took me so long just to work up one little tiny piece of meat that he'd be like, trim this for hamburger, and it'd be, I I don't know, a long time, a really long time. But once I realized that you're not, I mean, this is a funny word to use, but you're not going to butcher it. But you are butchering, but you're not going to butcher it. If you make a mistake, so what? It just becomes hamburger. That was a really difficult thing for me to learn right away, because I felt like I just had to know exactly how to do it before I dug in, and you really don't. You really do learn as you go, and you just find a method. You find a knife that you like. What?
You know, with me, the one day, Dad just said, all right, Peter, tomorrow you're going to help cut out deer. I was like, okay.
Okay, that's what I'm gonna do. And so, yeah, you find a knife. You know, what one person likes to use as a knife might not be the style you like. And so you try out a few different knives. You know, you try out a few different systems of cutting, wrapping, things like that. It's just whatever really works best for the way you cook, the way you want to consume the meat.
The meat is cold, so your fingers get cold. You got to pay attention to where they're at, or you get cut. And usually you don't feel it until you're like, oh, that was not the chunk of meat. it was, but it wasn't the right one.
Right, not the right one. I was trying to get a thumbnail picture, but nobody was listening.
Well, we're all busy. We want to get this done.
So Warren's going to pull neck meat off and pass it over to Sam and Sparky. They're going to work at trimming that up. And then Warren will continue to work through the carcass, just pulling off rib meat and what other cuts?
Well, we don't take anything that's between the ribs because there's really nothing there.
Okay.
But any some of the rib muscle on the outside.
Yep. Do you call that like flank or something? Is that what that's called?
And then I don't take anything that's got bone chips on it.
Right.
So.
And now, since we are most short on hamburger, pretty much a good portion of this deer has gone for hamburger too. So sometimes out of the shoulder roasts or out of the shoulders, Warren will cut roasts, or sometimes we cut and then we'll use a roast and cut it into stew meat right away. I've found that to be really helpful to have a variety of meats in the freezer. So I have about 1.5 hindquarters that Warren brought in, hindquarter roasts that he brought in for me, and I'm actually going to cube that up and I'm going to work on canning. I've never canned venison before, but I've been thinking that it would be kind of fun to do and to try. I have all kinds of ideas running through my mind, so we'll see what actually works out. I thought I'd give you guys a quick peek of outside. It looked more of a winter wonderland this morning, but now, you know, as the sun comes out, it gets kind of melty. But anyway, it snowed. This is the actual first real snow we had. And we had a good 3 inches on top of the vehicles this morning, so pretty exciting. I just turned off the grinder because I wanted to give you guys a little rundown of what's going on here. So I just have a basic kitchen scale, like you actually have to read the numbers, not digital, right? And then Emily is weighing them, and I just like to do it to the closest ounce. So that one is a full 2 pounds. If you look over here, we have some, I can't see that.
1 pound, 13 ounce.
What is
1
this
pound,
one?
12 ounce, 1 pound, 12 ounce, 2 pounds.
So I like to have it down to the ounce so that I know when I'm grabbing meat, like let's say I want to make a great big pot of barbecue and I want 5 pounds of meat. I can just quickly kind of do the calculation when I'm down at the freezer. So Emily is just packaging, or at least writing on all of these. You know what? I don't think we need to write the date. You know why? Because we're totally empty. We'll know this is all from this year, and we never have leftovers. When it comes to cleanup, I think you guys saw in one of my grocery haul videos or shopping videos, I bought a couple of these. This is just what we've been using for like 25 years. That's what Warren likes, and so that's what I always find. It's the soft scrub with the bleach, and it has to have the bleach to, you know, kill all the germs. And then he just came through, scrubbed up all the knives. You really have to watch this little section of each of your knives because that's where the meat or like little bits of sinew likes to kind of collect. So just really getting them nice and clean.
And then I'll scrub all the cutting boards and the tables out in the shop with this.
Yep.
And I'll let it sit for a good half hour with this on there just to kill any bacteria or anything. And then after it's set for a half hour, then I scrub them down with hot soapy water.
And everyone's chomping at the bit to get back to grinding.
Start it back up?
Yep, we're gonna start it back up. When it comes to packaging your meat, it's just important to make sure that you have, that you package your meat tightly and that you have a good barrier from, you know, from the air. So I like to actually wrap my meat in both a saran wrap, and then freezer paper. If you're wrapping meat alone, it's best to have one of these tape dispensers because then, you know, you can grab your tape one-handed. Otherwise, there was a lot of years we didn't have one, but I had kids, little kids who were eager to help, and that was like the perfect job for them was to tear tape, but this is helpful to have. And the most important thing is to label your meat well. So with these being mini roasts, I like to label how many mini roasts I have in here, as well as how many pounds. I'm gonna have 1 pack of 3 here, and that's fine. Sometimes, you know, we have some of our older kids come for supper, and then, you know, I can just pull out an extra one of these little packs. It's kind of nice to have a few of those in the freezer. So a whole lot of cleanup going on. Warren has been just scrubbing and scrubbing. He just taking out the garbage. Just a lot of, there's a lot of cleanup. That's one thing. Sometimes, oh, I have meat hanging off my camera. Sometimes, like today, with all the help, the cutting up of the meat and the grinding went really fast, and it's gonna take us about the same amount of time to clean up, I think. This is a lot of hamburger. That's beautiful. 14. I like to tally up and know exactly how much hamburger we put in the freezer. I mean, it's not necessary, but it's just kind of fun to be able to put numbers to it all, especially if you're a numbers person, which I am. So I just write it down, tally it up here, and I'm going to do the adding, and I'll let you know in a second. So this right here is actually 67.5 pounds of ground venison ready for the freezer. And boy, oh boy, oh boy, am I so excited about that. Now, thinking if this were to be comparable to something like a ground round. So ground round is definitely $5 a pound. It might even be a little bit more. I don't have a current flyer here to check, but 67.5 times $5. That is like $337.50 worth of meat, and I'm totally thrilled with that. So it is definitely a great it's a great addition to the freezer. It also helps me to know and to kind of compare when I'm watching different grocery hauls or different grocery budgeting videos and reading grocery budgeting magazine articles and things like that when they start talking about a budget for a family. And I would say that we're right in there, because although I do feel that we spend less on average per month than I would say a lot of different families and things like that that I read about or even that I talk with in person, we do put a lot of meat into the freezer, which is really worth a whole lot of it's worth a lot. It's just worth a lot. And so that is very, very helpful to our budget. Okay, so this part, and then we also, on top of that today, we had another 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.5 pounds of mini roasts as well. And then, you know, obviously there was all the meat from the other deer, from the first deer, and that was like more mini roasts and steaks and things like that. And I don't know how much exactly was put in the freezer from that because I didn't do the calculations that day. But I did mention earlier today that Warren had cut the hind quarter roasts for me, and I'm actually going to get this cubed up. I'll have to trim it. You can see there's like definitely some areas that needs to be trimmed here, but my goal for all of this meat is to can it. I have all kinds of ideas. I'm not sure if I'm going to can it just in stew meat, or I don't know. I also really thought it would be kind of fun to can some like venison stew and have that all in jars ready to go. I don't know. We'll see what all happens with this. Look what I caught. Warren getting all cuddly with the kitty. And he says, "Oh, that cat."
I'll still say that.
You're still going to say that?
Yep.
She is awfully cute, though. Oh, there she goes. So before I get started with the canning, there's a familiar sound. We have to dump, or I'm not really involved in this, but Warren is going to dump the carcasses. And so we're pretty fortunate that we have land available, that we have what we call a carcass pile. It actually is where we just put animal bones and things like that after hunting, and it just becomes basically a feeding center for whatever.
Wolves.
Whatever wants to come and eat. Yeah,
coyotes,
wolves, bobcats.
Eagles.
Yeah, whatever really wants to just come and eat. So that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna go dump the carcasses. All right, the snow is a whole lot prettier than the carcasses, but look at all that snow. Look at all that snow. All right, and that's reality. Well, I'm gonna just stay put here because nobody really wants to see up close the carcass pile. But anyway, it's just reality. And I don't know why I feel like I have to explain that, but I mean, if you're gonna butcher an animal, there's gonna be waste. And at least there's gonna be waste according to humans, but there's definitely animals and other critters that are absolutely gonna be thrilled to find that there tonight. So I finally have all of that meat that Warren saved for me, all of that hind quarter cubed up. I have it all trimmed just how I like it to be trimmed. And I'm slow, so it took me a long time to do this. But anyway, I measured out here 5 pounds. This is 5 pounds of venison stew meat. I'm actually going to make this into ready to go stew, and that I'm not going to get to until tomorrow. But tonight, the rest of this here, which is, let's see, 12 minus 5, so I have 7 pounds here of stew meat that I'm going to just can as I'm going to raw pack. Raw pack means that you actually start with a raw food product. There's no pre-browning, there's no you haven't done anything else to it other than cut it up and get it ready for the canner. So that's what I'm going to do with the venison tonight. I will be adding salt to that as well. In my pressure canner here, so it's really important to pressure can meat. There are directions, you will find it online, directions for water bath canning meat, and you probably want to run away from those. I know there are a lot of viewpoints on canning. Okay, so, but this is what I'm going to do. I have a quart of water in my pressure canner. I'm adding 1 more quart of water. I'm also adding a splash of vinegar. That is supposed to keep your canner from getting that ring around it, but I mean, you can see I have the ring around my canner even though I add vinegar. But it also does, I think, help to kind of clean the outside of your jars as well. Another thing that is up for debate currently is whether or not you need to sterilize your jars when it comes to pressure canning. I have read all kinds of different canning books and that you do not need to sterilize when it comes to pressure canning. And so as long as they are clean and hot, that is that's what I do. I just make sure that they're nice and clean and hot. So I'm going to loosely pack my cubes of meat into these quart jars. And I'm just going to loose pack it. A lot of vegetables you want to really tamp down very, very firmly. I can't really tell you the science behind why the meat is supposed to be loose packed, but it is. You can do this in pint-sized jars as well, even if you really wanted to, in half-pint jars. I just feel that for our family, a quart jar of meat would be just about right for making something if I wanted to make up a quick stew or kind of like a, not really a hamburger stroganoff, but like a venison stroganoff. Or if I wanted to, I could shred this and add taco seasoning and do like a taco, you know, a venison taco. There's a lot of options. The recipe that I'm going to be following for the venison stew said 4 to 5 pounds. So since this jar wasn't quite full, I thought I would just take a little bit of meat from what's going to be for the venison stew. I'm going to add 1 teaspoon of salt per quart. And notice I'm using a regular canning salt. And then you only want to fill these with water about that looks a little fuller than I want it, about 1/4 to 1/3 full, because the raw pack will create its own broth. And so you don't want too much liquid in there. Now I just have some vinegar. I'm just going to go right around the lip here, or the rim, just to clean it up to make sure you get a really good seal. And just a lid on each jar. And then just put your rings on finger tight. You want the ability for the seal, the lid here, to allow, you don't want to have it so tight that it locks it on, or locks any of the steam in too tightly. Because the ring is really only here to hold that lid in place during the canning process. After 24 hours, the rings will be taken off and the jars will get wiped down. And you want those rings off so that if you were to have a seal fail, you want that lid to be able to kind of like pop off, or you want to be able to know that it is. If the ring is on it, it can hold it in place so tightly that you don't even know that you had a seal failure. My canner can hold 7 quarts. I only have 5 quarts, so that's how it's going to be. I'm going to get the lid on. And it's always important to check your gasket to make sure there's no cracks or anything any place, and to make sure that it's all just right in place where it needs to be. I'm going to turn this on to high temp. So what I'm waiting for at this point is for this little vent right here to have steam coming out of it. As soon as steam starts coming out of this vent, I'm going to set my timer for 10 minutes and let it vent for 10 minutes. Okay, there we go. You can hear it. I can feel it. I'm not sure if you guys can see it, but 10 minutes. You want this to vent for 10 minutes. So this is the weight or the pressure gauge that goes onto my canner. Some of them have an actual dial gauge that you can set the pressure for, or you can see what the pressure is as it builds. This one is a little different in that it has 5, 10, and 15 markings, and so I'm going to be putting it on the 15 pounds of pressure, and then this will jiggle once the pressure builds up to 15, and to keep it at 15, it will jiggle and rock, which will cause a little bit of steam to escape, and that is what keeps it at the 15 pounds of pressure. And what I mean by that is this vent pipe here, that's where I'm going to put this 15 pound, but not yet. I have to wait 8 more minutes. All right, there's my timer. 15 pounds. I'll turn that off. So now I'm just going to wait for this to rock vigorously. So as this works its way up to 15 pounds of pressure, and like I said, it's going to start to rock vigorously. Once it starts to rock vigorously, I'm going to turn my heat down because I want to maintain 15 pounds of pressure. And if it's rocking continuously, it never stops, that means it's just always letting out a little bit of steam. You don't really want that because you don't want the canner to run out of liquid in the bottom. You know, the liquid, those couple quarts of water that you put in there at the beginning, or that I put in here at the beginning. I don't want that to steam away. And so I will turn my temperature down until my pressure gauge rocks. It'll kind of, mine anyway, and you just, it's really all about just kind of practicing on yours, but what mine will do is it'll go rock, 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 and then it'll wait about 15 to 20 seconds, rock, 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 15 to 20 seconds. That is the goal, and that is when I know I have it at exactly the temperature, the heat that I want it at. So I'm going to start on this stew. It's pitch black, and so it feels like it should be really late, but it's actually only 6:11, so I have plenty of time to get the stew going as well. So I just peeled some potatoes, and I have some of my onions. These are onions from my garden. And I also have some baby carrots that I want to get used, and those are in the fridge. So between those three vegetables, I'm going to leave out the celery. I decided to leave that out because I don't have it. That's why. And so anyway, I'm just going to get all that stuff cubed up the way the recipe says it should be cubed up. Okay, there's the rocking I'm talking about. So I'm just going to turn the heat down to 4. And we're going to go from there. We're going to see if that is the right temperature. I'm also going to set my timer right now for 90 minutes since I have quarts. Okay, I have this almost exactly where I want it. I did eventually have to turn this down to just a little under 2 on my stove, and so wait for it. Well, there's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It might be a smidge hot yet because it's about every 5 to 7 seconds. But I'm going to leave it right there just because I know that if I turn it down too low, then it's all of a sudden going to get too low. So you do want to give it a little time to kind of acclimate to that little bit cooler temperature. This is looking about just right. That was 10 seconds, 12, 13, 14, 15. I hope at 20 right now, I hope it jiggles. It didn't jiggle. So see, that's already, I'm going to put it just a teeny smidge higher because I really want it to be rocking about every 15 to 20 seconds.
Click the down button. Down, down, right there. Now click OK.
So I have some hot oil going in my great big cast iron pan because the recipe that I'm using for the beef stew, you actually brown the meat, and it's a little bit more involved. There is a recipe at a channel that I saw recently. I think they might be called the Homesteading Family, or it might just be called the Homestead Channel. I can't quite remember, but I'll link it below. I'll have to write that down to remember to do that. But she does a beef stew recipe where she starts all raw pack, and I just thought I would try this. I wanted to do one thing raw pack and one thing hot pack. So that's why I chose this recipe.
Yep.
Okay, I underestimated, I guess, my pan. I probably should have done this in a great big, I don't know, like 10 quart or 16 quart soup kettle. Because what I need to do is I need to add all of these vegetables. So I have the potatoes and carrots and all of these onions. I have to add it to the pan, and then I have to cover it with water and bring it to a boil. I decided to bring out my great big, this is like a big stainless steel pot. I'm going to season this up with 1.5 tablespoons of canning salt, a full teaspoon, no, a half a teaspoon of pepper, and then I have some ground thyme. I would prefer to have like just crushed thyme, and I only have about 1/8 of a teaspoon, so that's what I'm going to put in. So I mixed everything together, I added the seasonings, and then I just covered it with boiling water. And I just wanted the water, you know, like just kind of to come to the edges like this. And it's not going to be a thickened stew at this point. You never, ever, ever want to, in your home canning sessions, use flour or cornstarch or anything like that to thicken it up. We just don't have home canning, you just can't do that. And so it's going to, you know, I'm just using the liquid like this. Now when I bring this out and I want to serve it, I can always stir in some flour, bring it to a boil at that point, and thicken it up, you know, if I want to. You can also, when you're thickening it up, you could put in a little tomato paste or tomato sauce. That always adds really good flavor to stew as well. So, all right, I'm just bringing this to a boil. As soon as I have this brought to a boil, I will be jarring it up. All of the stew is jarred up right now. I do have to wipe the rims with well, first I have to get out any of the air bubbles, so I always just take a wooden spoon and go down along the edges to get out any air bubbles, and then I will wipe the rims and we will put the lids on, lids and rings. If I didn't say already, this has a 1-inch headspace. So headspace is the distance from the top of the jar down, and this one actually has a little bit more than 1 inch. But you can see I just don't want any of the solids to be above that mark. Oh, that's hot. It's getting hot in this kitchen. Woo-wee. All right, we are counting down the last 3
minutes.
2, 1. Beep. Turn off that heat. An hour and a half is a very long time to sit and listen to that jiggle and rock and spit and spray and whatever, right? It's a long time, Joe? Did you think that was a long time too? It was a long time? Yeah. Well, now what we have to do, I turn the heat off, and we're just going to let this the pressure naturally release. That's possibly a common term to you now if you have an Instant Pot. They always say, you know, do a natural release or do a quick release. Well, when you're doing canning, you always want to do a natural release. So we're just going to let this come down. It can take, depending on what is in the canner, it can take anywhere from 10 minutes. I've had it take all the way up to like 40 minutes, which seemed like a really, really long time that time. What I do is after I stop hearing it kind of boiling and things like that inside, I will just tap this, and if it's still like pss, 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 then I know that I still need to let it go. If it does not pss, 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 then I know that it's the pressure is all the way down, and I take that off, take the lid off, and lift them out. I will show you that whole process, and then we will can up the stew. Okay, you might have just seen me jump a little. It's because that was some pretty hot steam. I try to keep my fingers away, but I kind of got a little steam on them that time. That hurt. So at this point, I like to just use my jar lifter, bring them out, set them on a double layer. I have 2 kitchen towels here. Now I'm looking, something looks funny with this jar, just because it's not boiling the way the other jars are. So you can already see that something is not quite right with this jar. It is not boiling like the other jars are, and so I'm thinking this one is probably not going to seal. I already heard this one pop. I already heard this one pop. That one I didn't hear, but I can tell it's popped, and this one has not quite popped. You see how that, there we go, it just popped right now. All right, so 4 of them have sealed. This one I'm thinking is not going to. I'm not sure you know what the reason is, but sometimes that happens. Sometimes you have a jar that just doesn't want to seal, but I'm not going to worry about that yet. I like to let these sit for at least 12 hours, 24 hours is best, and that's when I will take the rings off and check the seals and label them with what it is. So I will write venison and 2021 on there so that I know exactly what is in the jar. That is very important. Okay, it is 8:22. The stew only has to be at 10 pounds of pressure for an hour and 15 minutes. So I'm going to get this into the canner. I am going to add more water to my canner, and I will get this going in there, and then yeah, I'm going to do the same process all over again. Well, good morning. I have sad news to report. So with the canned venison, now mind you, this is actually the first time that I've done, that I've canned venison. I've wanted to for, probably 10 years. And finally I'm like, I'm just going to go for it. So the canned venison turned out really well. I had 5 quarts of that, and whoops, Joe, you can't tap when I'm tapping, so let's do that again. Joe, go eat your breakfast, please.
Oh, okay, honey.
Okay, go eat your breakfast. Did you hear that difference? So this one did not seal. I knew it wasn't going to seal immediately when I took it out because it was not boiling. It was not like under pressure, and I could just tell. So now we're going to move on to the beef stew, and I had 7. I actually had 8 quarts, but my canner can only do 7 quarts, and so I had 7. I put 7 quarts in my canner, and then here's the sad news. So we had 5 quarts not seal. I'm not sure why they did not seal. I followed the exact directions. I'd have to grab it out again from, let's see here. Where did I put that? Where did I put the directions? Where did I put my canning books?
Right here.
No. All right, I had the camera turned off because I was just about to have a meltdown because I could not find 2 books that I just had last night. So I had these 2 books, my Ball Blue book and my Miro canning book. I mean, I had them as late as like 10:30 last night, so I'm like, they couldn't have gone far. Anyway, they were on a stool.
They're on a stool.
Yep, Peter found them on a stool underneath a stuffed animal. As I was saying before, I'm just unsure why those 5 quarts of stew did not seal. I followed exactly the directions in here. I mean, not exactly in the sense that I did not put the celery in, and I also didn't have quite enough time. But neither of those should have affected this at all. So I'm just not sure. So I'm gonna have to read up a little bit about it, and I could freeze it. That is an option. and I'm pretty sure that I can recan it. Now I know that I have recanned other things in the water bath canner, but I'm just gonna have to look into it a little bit just to kind of figure out what I want to do. So kind of a bummer. And before we end today's video, I just want to thank you all for subscribing to my channel. If you haven't, it's a great time to do it. I'm adding a dime for every single new subscriber. We're going to do a drawing on, well, November 30th or December 1st, and half the money will be sent to one of you, and half of it will be sent to a charity. So I am putting in 120 dimes today. So thank you so much. So I just did a little research on just kind of looking into why maybe 5 of my 7 jars did not seal on the beef stew. Hold on at the clapping, Joe. Joe, hold on, thank you. He's watching my cousin's wedding video. Yeah. And when they clap, he claps. Okay. Yeah. And I also did a quick check of altitude, of my altitude as well. I always thought that our altitude was 1,000 or below, but we are actually at 1,027 feet here in my exact location. And so I suppose that could be it too. It does need to, instead of being at 10 pounds of pressure, it needs to be at 15 pounds of pressure. So after learning that, I realized that I'm going to have to can that at 15 pounds of pressure. And then it also just says that it's definitely fine to reprocess and just, you know, take the lids off. Check the jar lid again to make sure that there aren't any chips or cracks or something like that that would be preventing it from sealing. And then also just try with a new lid and see if that does it. Now in the past, I mean, I'm not sure if this is recommended, but in the past when I have had something like green beans or tomato juice not seal, if I've had a jar here or there, I have recanned it with the same lid and it came out just fine. So just definitely do your research when it comes to canning, and I would recommend a book like this, Ball Blue Book, or this one has similar information in it, little different recipes, but very similar, the Kerr Home Canning book. I think those both have a ton of great information in the introduction. It's pretty concise. It doesn't take a long time to read, so definitely you're going to want to check those types of books out. So one of the jars of stew that did not seal, I put into a pot. I'm going to warm this up for lunch today. I already tried a little bite of meat. I'm going to try another one. It is so tender. It is so good. I think the salt that this was, so for this recipe here is 1.5 tablespoons of salt. I think that the seasoning is just right.